What up, what up? I'm the Crate Digger. This is Studio to Stage. Studio to Stage is a development series which is designed to increase awareness of artists to standards, norms, and just different things to help increase the likelihood of success, efficiency, and quality. Now, this series has two sections, and each of those sections is divided up into three subsections. We have pre studio, in studio, post studio, then we have pre stage or pre show, on stage, and off stage or post stage. With that being said, all of the things that I share are based on decades of my time on stage and in the studio as a performer, DJ, producer, and much, much more. Listen, this is not all inclusive, nor are my suggestions the only way that things can be done. With that being said, I've seen a lot of ways that it shouldn't be done. Feel free to like, comment, and share. Let's get into it. So, moving to the stage, we have our pre show or pre stage, on stage, and our off stage or post stage sections. Let's start with rehearsal. Rehearsal, rehearsal, rehearsal. Quite simply, be ready so you don't have to get ready. Rehearsal, rehearsal, rehearsal allows you to maximize the efficiency, the quality, and also the creativity of your stage shows. Next thing, booking and contracts. There are a lot of different things we can talk about under this, but I'm going to keep it as simple but complete as possible. Riders. There are technical riders, hospitality riders, and sometimes under your hospitality riders is your travel and lodging rider. Sometimes they're separate. But riders are basically information or lists or specifications of things you need provided to you or your team to maximize the performance that you give. Tech riders include information about the type of equipment that you need the venue and or booking agent to provide. So for example, when I travel, I have a tech rider that includes the type of mixer and the turntables that I need, along with the type of mics, and if I have an external or extra controller for programming and triggering certain sounds from a different piece of software, all that is laid out in my tech rider so I don't have to travel with those, especially when I'm flying thousands of miles around, or if I'm on a tour and we're going from city to city. Having a tech rider that lays all those things out so the booking agent or production team who's responsible for putting on the show knows exactly what I need and they have it ready for me. Hospitality riders often include your travel. For example, how do you move from one venue to the next? Whether that be I'm going to fly city to city, or if I'm in Europe, for example, and I'm riding trains, or if I'm, over the road, if it's a van or a tour bus or what have you. And not just the method, but other specifications. For example, some people have travel or lodging riders that include 4 or 5-star specifications for their hotels. Or if they travel, they only travel business or higher. Next thing, financials. Of course, you want to know, what are you getting paid to do this performance? When am I getting paid? And not just how, but methods, dates. Are there going to be deposits, wire transfers, credit card payments, Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, cash in hand, check? Whatever the process is laid out clearly so there's no confusion both by the artist or the artist team as well as the booking agent and or the booking entity and all the people involved with making sure money goes to where it's supposed to go when it's supposed to go. Responsibilities and expectations is the next thing. A lot of times people aren't clear or people misunderstand or miscommunicate what is both expected of them and should be expected by other people for them. Having those responsibilities and expectations laid out in your contract is key. For example, sometimes I travel and I'll bring my own mixer. That is my responsibility. But the venue or booking person or parties are expected to provide the turntables. The next thing are, of course, your performance details. When, where, and for how long am I expected to perform? These things are very important, not just for the sake of your performance being on time and in the right place, but also knowing what type of preparation and creative actions can I take for that type of venue or that type of performance. Or if there's a larger theme to something that I'm part of, I want to have that information because it informs and influences the performance that I give. So once again, if heaven forbid something doesn't go well or you need to take things to court afterwards, it is clearly lined out and expressed in your contract what those things are. The next thing that I'm going to talk about, promotion. A lot of times artists are not expected or paid to be promotional agents of these different shows they're part of. With that being said, as an artist, I assume you have fans that want to see you or hear you perform. Once again, we know what they say about assuming, but I'm going to assume as an artist, you want your fans to come and see you perform or hear you perform. So even if it's just sharing the posts of or the promotional content of the booking agent, the booking party, the venue, the event, what have you, share those things so your fans, followers, and supporters can know. Next item, stage plots and venue specs. Very important for you to understand what space you have and where within the venue you'll be navigating. That includes having information on when and how you'll have to load in, meaning get equipment in, and when and how you'll have to load out. Also, sometimes you may not be able to load out immediately after your performance. If you're part of an event or a venue that has multiple artists performing, you may have to wait around until either an intermission, a stage change, or the end of the event before you can load out. As far as stage plots, it's important to know how much space you have. Can all your performers and equipment fit with the space that they need comfortably? Also, when you are developing your stage show, knowing if you have sight lines between certain musicians or all of those things that are important for you to maximize the quality of your performance, a stage plot helps lay those things out, as well as helps prepare your techs and production teams for your arrival for sound check, which we'll talk about in a few. House, backline, and some of the politics that go in with that. House, also meaning your venue, whether it be a theater, a concert hall, a lounge, a festival. The house basically just refers to the space, the event or venue. A lot of times you'll have to understand and deal with things like will call. If I have tickets that are going to be picked up by people coming to the show, do I have to have those in or list in by a certain time? Where do those people need to come? Is there a certain window that they need to come to get those tickets versus general admission? Understand what the house rules, procedures are so you can deal with those things before time and minimize any headaches that they may cause. Backline. Backline refers to equipment provided for an artist, but oftentimes is shared. For example, if there's going to be a series of performers and several drummers at a venue or an event, they may have a drum set provided, and each drummer is responsible for bringing their own snare drum, kick pedal, and cymbals, for example. Same thing for amps, for guitars, sometimes for keyboards. So, and once again, oftentimes DJ equipment. When we talk about politic, another term that I use for politic is really professional courtesy. Showing up, being professional, being courteous, being considerate, because oftentimes you're not the only performer at an event or at a venue, goes a long way. Next part, sound check. Sound check is a really interesting phenomenon that I've seen go real well and real bad and all the things in between. I would like to spend a little more time on this than I normally would because I think it's very important. A sound check has different functions, but one thing it is not, 9 times out of 10, is a rehearsal. We talked about rehearsal before we even went into the studio. We talk about rehearsal first thing when we talk about pre-show. Sound check is not for rehearsing. Sound check, depending on the type of sound check, is for preparing the techs and the artists to be sure everything is working properly, levels are set, and different things are developed to be sure that those two entities are working together for the betterment of the performance. Now, there's things like a line check. A line check is basically ensuring that the cables that run and send the audio feed from whatever instrument and or equipment or microphone and routing to the mixer to the house system is working properly. Sometimes a line check is very simple as, for example, for a DJ, I'm just plugging in my mixer and my turntables, being sure everything is working properly, and I'm sending levels at the appropriate level to the mix engineer, and that's it. Sometimes a band will have a line check, making sure all of the different mics and or plugins are once again sending audio signals appropriately, and then you may play to do a monitor check. For example, I may not need to hear the drummer through my monitor because I physically hear the drummer percussive in the air. A keyboardist I may need to hear, but I may not need to hear the keyboard as loud as I may need to hear the horn player, or I may need to hear the vocals and myself in my monitor at different levels. So once again, line checks and monitor checks are all things that help each individual artist on stage hear what they need to hear in their monitor, as well as know that they're sending out the signal that's needed by the mix engineer. Understand a couple of things about sound checks. They work best when everyone who is performing is present and is actually paying attention. Oftentimes, the tech is asking questions and their question affects other people. So they may be asking the vocalist, are they hearing everything in their monitor properly? But the tech is then going to immediately ask possibly who else needs to hear the lead vocalist. And if me and the drummer are having a conversation and the horn player and the keyboard player are having another conversation and one of the background singers are on their phone and nobody's paying attention, our sound check process gets drug out. People don't often hear other parts of the conversation that affect them, and it puts stress on the tech and the tech team as well because they're trying to move through on the behalf of the artist to give you the best sound. There's a couple of different terms and titles, but you'll usually have someone on the side of the stage often or near the stage who's responsible for mixing what you hear on the stage. And then you have another group of techs out in the audience or in the house, in the venue, who are responsible for mixing what's heard in the house. Oftentimes you want to engage your conversation to your mix engineer or that side of stage engineer because they're the ones who are going to be able to turn your monitors up or your input up. Try to have extra ears with you. There's been plenty of times where I've been part of a show and I've done my sound check as the DJ and I'm just sitting in the audience or in the seats and another group is sound checking and the tech didn't realize that something isn't moving from the stage to the house. I can see them singing and I can hear them in the monitors on the stage, but there's nothing in the house of the vocals. And it was caught then by the tech like, hey, my mistake, I had this muted. But once again, you want to have extra ears if available to be in the house and to move around to hear what the audience is going to hear. Because oftentimes what the audience hears and what the people on stage hears is not the same. A lot of time spent on sound check, but I think it's important. Last thing I want to talk about for your pre-show or your pre-stage preparation is your green room backstage experience. Some venues, both large and small, offer different options for what their green room or kind of artist lounge space is. Sometimes it's a large green room that all of the artists will share as they come on and off stage. Sometimes it's not so large, so they ask that once you're preparing or right before your set time, you have access to the green room, and right after your performance, then they ask you to clear out so the next group can have access. There's all of these different layouts, rules, capacities, capabilities of what green rooms look like. Remember, most times these green rooms are backstage, so keep in mind, depending on, once again, what that venue is like, how your conversation and engagement, eating, drinking, smoking, or whatever you do in the green room, how that may affect what is heard in the stage area. Your rider for that often, once again, includes if you have, for example, myself, I have cranberry juice, Red Bulls, water, are specifically on my green room or show rider, and that's different than what is part of my hospitality rider in terms of my travel. And if meals are provided that I don't eat pork, or if you have, fruit plates or allergies to this or all those different things. So once again, when you talk about your booking and contracting, sometimes you'll incorporate that and sometimes it's a different conversation. But ideally, you want to have it laid out so when you get to the venue and you're in the green room, relaxing and preparing for your performance, you have the things provided that will help maximize the quality of your performance.